Hello everyone, this is Hussein Hisham from WhatsApp Media Network, and as we promised you guys, we are live today with a live show with our dear friend and the community friend, Hameed Dakroub. Attorney Hameed Dakroub is a estate planning and probate attorney. We've seen Hameed come on the show a couple of times with us on the radio show, talking about different topics related to his field. Due to the demand, we said, why not? Let's do a live Facebook show, a Q&A with Hameed. Any question you have, anything that comes to your mind about estate planning and probate and power of attorney, wills, trust, anything that comes to your mind that relates to that topic, feel free to write a comment on the comment box, and we will basically do our best to take your questions. So I'm just looking for the video here on the page so I can basically make sure I'm not missing any of the question when we get them. However, just so we can get started, I want to thank our sponsors who are basically been supporting WhatsApp Media Network. Attorney Hameed Dakroub, estate planning and probate attorney.
Thank you.
Applied Modern House, Dr. Mo Hazimi. Big Race Quick Lube on Oakman and Ford. And Ever Fresh Market, Aswa Al Balad. We have many coming soon with us, so stay tuned. Anybody that would like to be one of our sponsors or advertise with us, feel free to inbox us on the page or call us at 313-258-6799. 313-258-6799. All of those shows, whether the live shows that we do, whether the news report, whether the WhatsApp talk show, any program that we do, any story that we do, any live coverage that we do, all of them, you can find them on the website. Just go to www.whatsappmedianetwork.com and you'll be able to see everything there. And even if you want to sign up to our newsletter, that newsletter it come up every week. Once a week, and it has all of the stories for that week specific. So you can sign up to that newsletter either on the website or on the Facebook page. And tomorrow, tune in at 6:30 p.m. We have a show in Arabic with Abbas Abu Khadr, and he has two guests with him tomorrow. We'll basically be releasing the flyer after this live show. Hameed, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, how's everything?
Alhamdulillah, not bad. How's everything with you?
Alhamdulillah, very good, very good.
Always great being on the show and being with you. So
The pleasure is all ours, Hameed. Thank you for joining me.
Of course.
Inshallah, hopefully we can give a lot of good information today. It's going to be like a relaxed one, you know what I mean? We're sitting, we're having coffee, and we're going to try to give as much information as possible.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited.
Anything you would like to open remarks for you, Hameed?
Well, everybody, please feel free to tune in. Feel free to ask any questions you'd like. This is a Q&A. Anything you need to know about estate planning, probate, wills, trusts, powers of attorneys, deeds, guardianships, conservatorships, whatever it is that you like to ask, I'm here to answer them.
Very good. And don't forget, please feel free to share this video so we can basically reach more people so they can know about the Q&A that we're having today. So make sure you share this video. We give you the permission to share this video. Hameed,
yes.
The question that comes to the mind all of the time is, why is it important for everyone to have a will or a trust?
Sure. Well, it's a very good question. As a matter of fact, this question is so detailed that it takes longer than a simple show to answer this,
It's
right?
all yours.
It's very crucial to have these documents in place.
Okay.
Not just a will, not just a trust, but sometimes an entire estate plan.
Very good.
Depending on the actual situation you're in, right? Now, most of the time, if not all the time, you need a full estate plan. What does an estate plan consist of, right? An estate plan consists of typically a trust, because you could do a trust-based estate plan, which also includes a pour-over will, and it also includes powers of attorneys.
Very good.
Any sort of business assets that you own can get assigned into the trust.
Very good.
Deeds to properties, things of that nature, and other documents that are ancillary as part of the entire estate plan. So you can go two ways, right? You can go, the first way is the will way. You can go a trust way as well too, right? Now, does everybody need an estate plan? The answer is yes.
Okay.
What kind of estate plan does everybody need? That's where it varies depending on the type of person, depending on the goals of the individual, and depending on the assets involved or the complexities involved, or what it is that they have, right? And that varies from case to case or what their goals are. And my job is to make sure that I give them the most cost-effective approach, the cleanest approach, and the approach that requires less stress, peace of mind, and relaxation throughout the process, knowing that they did whatever they can do to help their families, their children, and their loved ones.
Very good. I think we spoke on the radio briefly last time about this, but if you can remind our
Sure.
viewers, whoever probably missed the episode that we did last time, what's the difference between a will and a trust? Just a couple points.
For
if you
sure.
don't mind.
So there's a lot of misconceptions involved about this, but
and we're going to be talking about
exactly,
misconceptions.
exactly. So the main difference is that number one document is public and the other one is private.
Okay.
Number two, one document helps you avoid probate court and the other document does not. So
Very
let's
good.
touch on this
Please,
briefly.
go ahead.
So a will, for example, when you write a will, your family, upon your passing, would have to go to the probate court in order to inherit your assets.
Okay.
So they'd have to be under court supervision. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, God forbid something happens to them in Wayne County, right?
Okay.
And your assets are located in Wayne County. Then your family would have to go to the Wayne County probate court, deal with the headaches involved in going through that process and procedure, hiring an attorney, not knowing where to go, what to do, how to do anything. At the time where they're grieving the most, that's the last thing on their mind. They don't really care about this right now. And yet they have to deal with the headaches of going downtown, back and forth. Or if there's properties in different counties, properties in different states, then there's an issue there as well too.
This question didn't come up to my mind last time, but as you're speaking, it just sparked in my mind.
Sure.
If they have rental properties, are they allowed to collect the rent?
Sure.
While the process is not done yet?
For sure. What happens is, at the first thing you want to do is that rental property then becomes part of the estate.
Okay.
You can't spend that money, right? It becomes part of the estate asset. So what do you do in that situation? You want to get appointed as personal representative right away in order, for example, to act on behalf of that money.
Okay.
Because technically they can't spend that money. They're not authorized to spend that money. Why? Because it's not their money. It's for the deceased. It's for the person who passed away.
I mean, let's just say hypothetically, they don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't have a estate plan. They don't have a will or a
Sure,
trust.
sure.
I mean, give. And then their dad, la samah Allah, they died. And he died at the end of the month. They have a new month. They have to collect rental.
Sure.
And they want they collected rental.
Got it.
Any problem with that?
Technically speaking, yes, there's an issue. Why?
Okay.
Because that money is allocated to the deceased. And if it's not allocated to the deceased, it has to be allocated according to what the laws of the state of Michigan say it needs to be allocated. Now, what does that mean? If you have a will, whatever the will says, right, is something that, for example, gets distributed. If you have certain percentages going to certain people, what if you're collecting the rent on behalf of your deceased father, but you're not entitled to the rent because it's not technically yours? It has to go through the probate court process, right? There has to be somebody appointed as personal representative. This is the person who's in charge of administering the estate, right? So, if they have a will, this is typically a person who is mentioned in the will.
Okay.
If they have a trust, they don't need court supervision. They're outside of the court, right? And so that's the difference between a will and a trust, to kind of touch back on your point.
Yes.
Is that you can have a trust, and that way you don't have to have court intervention or supervision. You can do everything privately and quietly, and nobody will know the contents of your will. Nobody will know the contents of your trust. Versus people can publicly find out the contents of your will. Yeah. So
if they know, that's probably something we didn't touch on last time too. If the will is public,
yes.
Why would it hurt if somebody know what's on the will?
Not necessarily hurt, but I'll tell you what becomes a nuisance.
Okay.
For example, I have a lot of clients that will tell me, Hameed, I'm getting phone calls from these people who are asking me about the assets inside the estate. They see that because it's all public information, people will call you and be like, oh, I see right here in the documents you have a house that you put in here. Are you looking to sell the house? How did you get my phone number? Why are you calling me? Why are you reaching out to me? I don't want to deal with this.
So you put yourself in harassment of something.
Exactly. Now, not only that, is sometimes, for example, people want to leave or disinherit people out of their estate plan for other reasons. Maybe they provided for them in property overseas. Maybe they gave them a gift during their lifetime that says, I don't want to go ahead and put you in my estate plan because I'm gifting you something in your lifetime, right? Or maybe it's something that somebody doesn't want to have family drama or issues or headaches.
Since you mentioned drama, I want to ask something. Command, it didn't come up to my mind last time.
Sure, of course.
It's not normal, and it's not legal, I believe, in the United States to have two wives, right?
Correct.
Okay, let's say somebody is married, one legally through the American system, court, and another wife Islamically. Because we are allowed Islam to have four wives, right? What would happen when he dies, for example?
Well, the share of whomever it is that is legally his wife would be the person to inherit.
So we don't obey the Islamic wasiyya?
No, the laws of the state of Michigan would control over that.
Okay.
Correct.
So the one that's married Islamically,
if she's not registered civilly, it's out of luck, and she can't register civilly, obviously, because that means there would be two.
Okay, let's say they get kids. How would they register them in the state?
Well, it's not necessarily that they have to register the marriage, but the kids would have an entitlement to the assets for sure, right? Because they're the decedent's children. Even if if they don't have a will, then the laws of the state of Michigan tell you, well, if these kids are part of, for example, are from the same mother, right? Then the mother gets a different type of share than she would if they weren't from the same mother type.
Let's say the first wife is not happy. She just knew when the husband died, he had another wife. Can she go to court and prohibit the other kids of the other wife from having anything?
Well, it depends on the situation, right? I mean, typically, whatever the laws of the state of Michigan will dictate that, and that's more family law issue. And so, obviously, when it comes to the inheritance, it's who is registered as the surviving spouse. There can only be one, and then the children, obviously, of the decedent. Those are the ones who also will have an interest in the estate. So that's like a mix of like probate, estate planning, and family law together, right? Because
there's
cases,
of course, there's cases that are happening, and I've seen it.
That's a mix of all of them involved.
I mean, especially that we're airing to one area, which is in Dearborn Heights. There's a huge Muslim community, and I've seen it. I mean, the man that's married one or two wives.
And let me just put it this way: if, for example, the marriage isn't registered, it's gonna be extremely difficult to prove that this person has an interest in the estate.
I mean, can she go to Islamic court? Because we have Islamic courts in Lebanon. I don't know if we have them here, but
that might be out of the jurisdiction of where.
Let's say he has property in Lebanon. Hypothetically, I'm Lebanese. I have a property in Lebanon. I'm married to another one. I mean, Kiev. She cannot take whatever I have probably here because she's not registered in the U.S. But will she be able to take anything that's in Lebanon?
Well, whatever the Lebanese law controls.
So the Lebanese law dictates that.
Oh, for sure.
I think this will clear up something.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get into the misconceptions.
Sure.
And I'm gonna start with the misconceptions involving wills.
Okay.
So we're gonna talk about misconceptions involving wills, and we're gonna move to misconceptions involving trust.
Let's do it.
Let's start with wills.
So, for example, a lot of misconceptions people tell me is, I actually had a client that came into the office just recently, and they told me, they're like, well, what if there was already a will? Why is it that we have to go through this whole probate court process? I mean, there's a will and it's in writing. Just because it's a will and it's in writing doesn't mean that you avoid probate court.
Very good.
The probate court has supervision and jurisdiction over your will, or if you don't have a will. So then people be like, well, why do I need an estate plan anyway? Why do I need to do a will? What's the point of a will if I still have to go to court? The point of a will is, versus if you didn't have a will, is the laws of the state of Michigan tell you how your assets are going to get distributed, who's going to be the person in charge of distributing your assets, who's going to be potentially the person in charge of watching over your young children.
Oh.
That's very, very important.
Too.
Guardianship, exactly. Oh. Versus in a will, you can nominate the person who's going to take control of your assets and distribute them accordingly. You can say how and to whom you want your assets distributed and divided. And you can nominate people in your estate planning documents in your will to be guardian and conservator over your minor children. So that way you nominate the right type of people to make sure that they take care of your children.
So you are almost in control of what's happened even after you pass.
Correct. Now, if you want more control, then you get a trust.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about misconceptions. That's one misconception. What's another misconception?
Privacy versus public.
Okay.
You have to. Your will becomes a public document. Many people are like, "What do you mean it becomes public? I don't have to register it anywhere." You don't have to register it when you draft the will and you execute it and you sign off on it. Okay. Correct. But the time it becomes public is the time that you have to take the will, the original will, and you have to take it through the probate court while you're filing your documents in order to show the court that this will is how it's going to be divided, the assets are going to be divided according to this will, right? So then because of that, all that information becomes public. So anybody can come in and search what you have in your will. If you wanted it private, or if you said you wanted to give a certain gift to somebody, and you maybe only wanted the person who's in charge of distributing the gift to somebody, or the assets to somebody, only they see it becomes public so everybody can see it as well too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, another one.
Essentially, another misconception is that there's no protection for the beneficiaries. People think that, oh, if I have a will, that it's protected, my assets are protected. That's not true, because if you inherit the assets in a will, after the probate court process, depending on how long it takes, maybe 8 months to a year, for example, and then you receive your assets, what would happen during that time period is, if let's say you take that money, right, and you deposit it into your bank account, and you start commingling those funds, and God forbid something happens and you get a divorce or something, or somebody's suing you, that money becomes in jeopardy to be lost. that money that you inherited, there's no protection for it, right? Because you're getting it outright. So there's no protection. And if your young children inherit it outright, they have to be a guardianship or a conservatorship have to be appointed, and they have to go back and forth to court every time they want to go ahead and take some assets out, which is costly, time-consuming, a headache, and it's just not feasible.
Okay. What are some of the mistakes people do when it comes to wills, Hameed, when it comes to estate planning? From your experience working?
My experience is a lot of people, first of all, don't do estate planning.
Okay.
So that's a big mistake, number one.
Very good.
Second is they don't update their documents, right? So they all have.
I think this is one of the misconceptions. You know, they think you cannot amend.
Correct. And that's a great point that you bring up. Is a will you can amend it at any time as long as you have the cognitive ability and you're competent enough to amend it. So which means that you're able to understand what you are doing and that you can amend the will, right, through a codicil. That's what it's called. So you can amend it at any time. You can change it, update it, revoke it, draft a new one, get a new one at any time. And so what I see a lot of times is people will come to me 10 years later, 5 years later after they did their estate planning, and it'll be like, I didn't update this, or something new happened in my life, and I don't want this person. I'm no longer on good terms with this person who's their personal representative, and I want to go ahead and I want to change that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We have a question?
Sure.
What's the question? I don't see it, Zaina. Probably it's my iPad is.
At what age should you start looking into getting a will?
18. 18.
So the question, we had a question on Facebook. I don't see it here, probably because it's an old iPad that Zaina gave me. But the question was, at what age should you be looking to do a will? So Hameed's answer is?
18.
18.
And so when people usually ask me, they're like, well, when's a good time
Even if
for
you have nothing, Hameed?
Yes, because what you want to do is you want to ensure that when you do receive something, that you have the right people to make those decisions for you.
Okay.
And it's not too late, right? Because we don't know when things are going to occur. We don't know if, for example, when we're going to become incapacitated, when deaths might occur, or when something detrimental to your health or your livelihood or to your family is going to occur. God forbid. We can't predict that.
Very good.
So when people ask me, when's a good time for me to do estate planning, I always tell them one word: yesterday.
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 Just to remind you guys, feel free to share the video so we can reach more people, and so more people will know about this Q&A with Attorney Hameed Dakroub. I mean, thank you for your time.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Doing this so you can benefit your community. This is amazing.
And that's the most important thing, is to give everybody peace of mind. Nothing makes me happier than me knowing that when clients leave and they tell me I feel so much better, or I'm so much more relaxed, or I have this peace of mind, and or you helped me with something that's very important for me. It helped my family, my children.
Very good, very good. So Hameed, we spoke about wills a bit, about some of the misconceptions that can happen with that. Let's talk about trust.
Okay.
And we're also talking about misconceptions of trust.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So one of the biggest misconceptions regarding trust is the fact that only rich people or very wealthy or those who have a lot of money or assets need trust. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. As a matter of fact, I had a client that came into the office just recently as well.
Okay.
And they're like, I don't find it necessary for me to do a trust. I'm like, well, why? Like, I don't really have anything, I don't really have much. So I'm like, okay, much as in what? Have much as in how? In what sense? They're like, oh, I don't have much as in like money or amlek or property or assets or bank accounts. I'm like, okay, well, are you married? Yeah. Oh, so you have a spouse, okay. That's much, right? Yeah. Do you have minor children? Yes. Of course. So they have minor children. I was like, okay, how do you want to make sure that you protect your minor children? All right. One of the ways to do so is through a trust and through the privacy of a trust, right?
Oh.
So that way that your family members or your wife or anybody else who's going to watch over them doesn't have to go to the court in order to go ahead and spend money for their clothes on behalf of them for any holiday shopping, for their education and their support or their maintenance.
Very good.
Yeah.
Hameed, we have another question from Facebook.
Oh,
They're
thank you so
saying,
much.
should spouses get a will together or separate?
No, wills are typically separate,
Okay.
right? So it's typically, one person passes away, God forbid, and the other person can
So
inherit
if
the
you're
assets.
married,
separate.
you don't do it
Yes.
together?
However, a joint trust
Okay.
is where it works best, yes. So what happens is, in an estate plan, the best situation is to have a joint trust, for example, or you can have separate trust. A joint trust, typically, if you and your spouse have similar goals, everything will go to the other individual upon your passing, to the survivor, and then maybe to your children afterwards, right? And in a trust, you can designate so many different options, right? You have the flexibility. For example, if you want to say, I want my child to receive this inheritance only if they complete grad school or get educated in a certain way, you can actually control that after you pass away. Versus a will, you don't have any control over what happens when they receive the money, because they receive the money after the probate court process with no condition.
And we're going to talk about the probate process, because
yes,
it's very
exactly,
important.
very
And we
important.
didn't speak about it before, so
Yes.
we'll give it some time so we can talk about it. But going back to that, we've seen many cases where parents give their assets to their kids while they're still alive,
Yes.
and then kids, not everyone, but
Yeah.
some kids, they go and they put their mom or their dad
Yes.
in senior houses. They put them outside of the home. They claim the property. They're
Sure.
giving them money.
Sure.
What's your suggestion to those parents or to anybody in general?
A lot of times we do this, especially our community, because we have this perception of, I'm just going to give everything to my children while I'm alive. I'll put the businesses in their name. I'll put the house in their name. I'll put whatever it is, the bank accounts, I'll put them on the bank account. The problem they don't realize is the pitfalls of joint tenancy. Now, what am I getting at? For example, if your child is going through a divorce, right?
Mhm.
That property that you put him on or that he owns, even though it's your property, but you gave it to him, right? So that way they can avoid the court process or the probate
Okay.
court in the future. What happens in that situation is that might be subject to the divorce. What do you mean subject to the divorce? That's not my son's money. It has nothing to do with him. I just put him on the account. No, it could potentially be subject. Or if they get in an accident, God forbid, la samhallah, or something happens to them and there's a lawsuit, right? There's a lawsuit against them and they have this asset that they're jointly owned with you.
Very good.
They can potentially, the creditors can potentially try to say like, hey, you own this asset as well too. Maybe force the sale of that house in order for us to receive our share.
Very good.
Even if their share is not really theirs or they're not really doing anything with
Wow.
it. So there's that. So that's what we do. How do we avoid that? By proper estate planning.
Very good. Let's say, hypothetically too, because we've seen, we're talking out of, cases that really happen.
Of course.
Some of them are hypothetical, some of them that really happen.
Yeah.
Some in our culture, they still love their boys a lot,
Yes.
and they want to only give their properties and their money to their boys only,
Yeah.
and they don't want to give to the girl.
Correct.
Because the girl is married, they don't want the money to go to their brother-in-law or to the son-in-law.
Yeah.
So could they do that?
There's laws around that regarding how and to whom you want to disinherit certain individuals. For example, what comes to me often, not often, but once in a little while, I'll get cases that say, I don't want my wife to get anything.
Okay.
For
Can they do
example,
that?
And no,
No.
they can't do that, right? And so there's ways around. However, if you have adult children and you'd prefer that they don't receive anything, I mean, if you do it through your estate planning documents, you're fine, right? However, if you don't have any estate planning documents, that was your intent, or religiously it says the male gets double share than the female, but you don't have an estate plan to go ahead and say
And
that.
other way around, by the way, not just you want to give to the boy, they want to give to the girl.
They want to give to the
I
girl
don't want to
too.
give to the boy.
And then there's no estate planning documents to show that, then the laws of the state of Michigan will tell you this is how it's going to get distributed. The spouse is going to get her share, and then after that, the kids will get their share in a format.
So we know Islamically, for example, the boy get double what the girls get.
Correct.
Is there something similar in Michigan law when it comes to
No.
how we can distribute?
No,
There is
great
no-
question. There is no differentiation between male or female. If you don't have an
Is there a specific percentage
Yes,
after spec?
yes,
What's
exactly.
the percentage?
And the percentage is, it's adjusted for inflation. The wife will get a certain, it depends if the children are from the same marriage or from the same woman. For example, if it's the wife who survives,
Okay.
then she gets a certain percentage and then the remainder gets distributed among the children. Or if she's not, for example, the mother of the children, then she gets less of a share. But what happens is there becomes a conflict, right, between what the woman should get Islamically versus what the laws of the state of Michigan say she should receive through inheritance rights. And that's where it becomes kind of like an issue, right? Unless obviously nobody contests it, the surviving spouse has a right to actually, even if the will says, oh, I have a will now and I want to disinherit my wife, for example. The spouse, wife, husband, it doesn't matter, right? The spouse has the right to say, you know what? No, I'm going to elect against the will. And if she elects against the will, she has the right to say, I don't want to go with the will. I want to get my share of what the law gives me. And then there's a formula for that as well too. All this is online and formula.
Amazing,
It's very complex.
Amazing information to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Really, اخدين راحتنا, you know, we're taking it relaxed because on the radio you have to speak Arabic and English.
Yeah.
and English.
Wait, so if you want to translate, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. بالعكس, I'm really happy because I don't have to translate. On Facebook we're fine. On the radio you have to
Right.
translate a
No
lot because the
problem.
majority
Of
of
course,
the listeners, you know,
course.
they speak only
That's
Arabic.
my fault. I need to get better at my Arabic.
Hameed, we have another question
Okay.
on Facebook. It says, what if we want to leave our money or assets to charity?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, you have the right to do so. Most definitely, you have the right to do so. And you could do so in certain aspects, whatever it is that you want. I get clients all the time that say, you know what, I want to give a percentage of my assets to, you know, a charity. And they can go ahead and do so. As a matter of fact, I had a client who just came in, and I did the whole estate plan for them, and he wanted to leave it, he didn't have a wife or children, and he wanted to leave his entire estate to a scholarship fund. Even though he had siblings and other family members, he left it all to a scholarship fund.
They
So
call
we had
it
to work that out.
endowment and
Yeah, endowment fund,
funds.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. He did that, and so you're
You
welcome
can.
to do- Yeah, of course. Of
And
course.
if they want to do that, they can. If they have kids or children, say no, we're against this. You cannot do this.
Depends on how old the child is. If it's under 18, then the law gives the child a certain share, and there's also exemptions, right? There's
Let's
spousal
talk about that
exemption.
because that's a great question. Thank you for Mona. She asked that question.
No problem.
You have a lot of money. You have a lot of properties. You said, you know what, Anna, I think my kids are well off. I don't want, or you there's some problems in the family.
Sure.
I don't want to give anybody family. I want to donate it, you know, to whether charity, whether to start an endowment, funds for scholarship, whatever the case might
Yeah.
be. What could be some cases where the kids can say, no, you cannot do that, and they could do it?
Yeah, so for example, those are great questions. The laws of the state of Michigan dictate that there's like things called like the omitted child statute regarding that. And even for the surviving spouse, if she's disinherited, she has laws and protection. Not only that, is in addition to those laws and protections against them, the law also gives you something called a family allowance, the spousal allowance, exempt property allowance. All these are allowances for children
So it
or
seems
for
that
family
you cannot
members.
have 100%
You cannot have 100%.
I think this is what they mean. I think we have another question. Before we take the other question from Facebook, and
Sure.
thank you for the questions, we love them.
Of course.
Just we want to remind you that Attorney Hameed Dakroub's office is here in Dearborn on 1 Park Lane Boulevard, Suite 729 East in Dearborn. And the direct phone number for Attorney Hameed Dakroub is 313-401-4488. 313-401-4488. Any questions that you have, feel free to basically call the office. They'll be happy to help you with any question. You don't have necessarily to commit to something, Hameed. They can
No, it's a free
consult.
consultation.
It's a free consultation.
Yeah.
Perfect. So anybody that has a question, they don't want to post it here, it's a free consultation with Hameed. They can call the numbers that we just mentioned, and we're going to mention it again, inshallah, in a bit. Hameed, we have
Yes.
a question from Lula. She's saying, how much inheritance tax will my heirs owe?
None.
None.
There's no inheritance tax.
Mafi.
Mafi. The only tax that might be in jeopardy is something called the estate tax. The estate tax you have to worry about. That's where good estate planning comes in, right? Trusts and you incorporate certain types of formulas and tax planning provisions within your trust, general versus limited powers of appointment. Now the laws changed. The laws now for the estate tax, where then there will be a fine for or a penalty for that, is $11.4 million per person. Husband or wife can shelter up to $22.8 million for the estate tax. So inheritance, they don't have to worry about that. So they're good to go there.
They're good to go there. Probably related to that, Hameed, if somebody, for example, is going through bankruptcy, and due to that bankruptcy that they're going through, they got a stroke, heart attack, they died. Now they have their kids. Would the kids inherit that bankruptcy, or what's going on? How will it
So that's so I think so you're coming from the aspect of the creditors, right?
Yes.
That's a very good question.
Yes.
So for example, one of the things that another misconception, right?
Since we're talking about misconceptions today.
A misconception about estate planning in general is people think that you don't necessarily inherit the debts of the decedent. You don't technically inherit them, right? What that means is that the children won't be responsible for them, but the estate will. What does that mean? One of the first things that you do through the probate court process, for example, is you have to publish something called notice to creditors. Why do you publish notice to creditors? Because the law says if nobody responds back to you within a certain period of time, then those creditors are out of luck. And you have to give these creditors notice. What kind of notice? It's typically a publication notice, and I can help with that, obviously. You give them notice. If they respond back and say the decedent owed, $5,000, my job is in any way I can to do my best under the legal realm of everything to try to make sure to preserve the estate assets as much as possible. To try to maybe negotiate, to try to see if I don't have to pay that in any, or the estate doesn't have to pay
Let's
that.
say, Hameed, just because it's part of it. Let's say I own a house.
Yeah.
I'm doing mortgage payments on it, and the owner died.
Yeah.
With the property, because now we have inheritance.
Yeah.
Because the kids will take the property, right? Based on whatever the will or the trust say.
Sure.
Would they inherit the mortgage too, so they have to make payments?
That's a great question. There's a difference between secured debt and unsecured debts, right?
That's
So,
correct.
let me get back a little bit to the other because I just wanted to
Go
finish
ahead,
something real
take your
quick.
time.
No, only because this is kind of important with regards to the creditors,
Yeah.
because the creditors get paid before the beneficiaries get paid. So they have to get paid, right? And my job is to do what I can to make sure to preserve the estate assets as much as possible. People think that, I'm just gonna get everything right away, give me the money that's in the will. No, there's a process that you have to go through. That's why it takes a little bit of time. So that way you give everybody a fair shot to go ahead and say, this person owed me this much, let's see if we can negotiate a deal or whatnot in order for us. Then the beneficiaries take the money at the end, right? So to come to your point, which is a very good point as well too, a mortgage is a secured, it's a secured lien on the property, right? So what happens in that situation is, if it's a surviving spouse, she can typically re-qualify for the mortgage. If it's not, if it's somebody else, they have to get the mortgage or a mortgage in their name. Or else the mortgage company has the right to take their interest in the property and force a sale of the house. Sometimes it's not good to force a sale of the house, and the children don't want that because of the amount of money that they might receive in the future, because it's real estate, maybe rental income in the future. So the best way to handle that would be to see if you can get a mortgage in your name in order to continue it. Because at the end of the day, the mortgage company is happy is if you pay them.
Very good, very good.
So that was a great point, great mention.
Great questions, everyone.
Great
Keep it
questions,
coming,
great
keep it
questions.
You
coming.
have a comment.
We have a comment that says, great work, important matter. People should pay attention to these details and take advantage of these free tips. We are very proud of both of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Again, make sure you share this video so we can reach more people. It seems that we're reaching a good amount of people. We're giving very good information to you guys today. It's free tips, like we said, so you don't not paying anything for those information. So feel free to ask any question you want. Just write it in the comment box on the live show that you're watching right now, and we'll do our best to answer your question to the best of our ability and to the best of Hameed's ability now. If you feel like you need to have privacy more and ask a question in person, Hameed's phone number, direct number is 313-401-4488, and his office is here in Dearborn on 1 Park Lane Boulevard, Suite 729 East. So Hameed is available for you guys. The consultation is free. Feel free to call him at any time. He'll be able to help you. Hameed, let's move to the power of attorney.
Okay, great.
What's the importance of power of attorney?
So what most people also come up to me, and that's great, I like the fact that you brought this up, is we only maybe think about what happens upon our passing, but we don't think about what happens upon our incapacity. Now what does that mean?
Very good.
If something happens to us, we're in an accident, or we can't make our own financial or healthcare decisions, who's gonna make it for us? People think that, my wife or my husband or my family members will get the automatic right to do so. That's not true. As a matter of fact, if there's a conflict or if the hospital doesn't want to take liability for the decisions that you have to make on behalf of somebody, they'll tell you, you know what, you need to go to probate court, you need to get a guardianship.
Wow.
And so you have to go to court, get a guardianship, hire a lawyer, pay money, pay court costs, and then everything becomes under court supervision. So what do you do to avoid that? Exactly what you said, the powers of attorney. And why is that so important? Because a power of attorney, what that does is one of the first things that a hospital or a clinic will ask you before when you get admitted is, do you have a power of attorney? Do you have a patient advocate? Do you have a guardian? And if you tell them yes, then it's somebody that they know to go ahead and to be in contact with regarding your healthcare concerns. The issues when you don't have, for example, powers of attorneys, I've seen it many times before, where then, especially if there's a conflict between the family members as to who wants to make what decision and what decision should be made, the courts will appoint a neutral party, somebody like a professional company, who only is required to see you 4 times a year to make your decisions for you, because the siblings and family members can't get along.
Wow.
And why would you want to go through that guardianship process, which first of all is more time consuming and more money? And it's not. Just have a simple power of attorney that designates the exact person that you want making your healthcare and financial decisions for you upon your incapacity.
I think a very famous case that happened that probably falls into this category is the Casey Cousin case. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. It's a fight between the kids and the wife who's going to take control of him. because he was incapacitated.
Exactly. And without proper estate planning documents, I mean,
I know he's famous and he's
Yeah,
stuff, and he
of
didn't plan it well.
Of course, and I think also there was an issue with Prince.
Yeah.
He died and he didn't have any estate plan, and he
Exactly.
was going to inherit his assets as well too. So all of this is
Because you don't know when you die.
you don't know.
Nobody
I mean,
knows.
everybody now at this point feels invincible. Naturally so. I mean, we don't know when we're going to go. It's not just about what's going to happen while we pass away, but what happens while you're alive but can't make your own decisions. And I'm glad you brought up the powers of attorney.
So let's say somebody is on life support.
Yes.
The hospital is saying we need to take the life support out. You guys need to make a decision on that.
Yes.
Who would take the decision?
Exactly. That's where it becomes an issue. The hospital will tell you, we don't want any liability for this. We don't want your family members to come back and sue us. So what do you have to do? You have to somebody go down to guardianship and fight in court over this. Why deal with this headache? Have the power of attorney ahead of time. So kind of like one of the things that we discussed actually in one of the videos that we did was having it to where when does a power of attorney kick in versus when a guardianship kick in? What's the difference, right?
Yes.
Power of attorney, you do it and you draft it and you designate somebody while you're still mentally aware, right? While you're competent. I go ahead and I say, I designate so and so to make my decision, and I choose. Versus guardianship, where you mentally cannot make your own decisions, you're incapacitated, and then there's people who petition the court, and then then there's like a little investigation that's actually done to actually research into it to decide who's going to make that decision for you. It's after you become incapacitated versus power of attorneys before.
Awesome. I know we said we're going to go for 30 minutes. We are already at almost 40 minutes, but we still have 2 topics to cover. We're fine. We're not underrated. We're not limited to a certain time, so we're fine. I want to really get as much information as possible so people can benefit from those information.
Definitely.
Let's move, Hameed, to the specialized deeds.
Okay.
Personally, I don't know what is that, so give us what's the description of that, and then...
And this is also very important. This touches, thank you so much, Sam. This touches on what we talked about at the beginning with, does everybody need all these estate planning documents? Besides the powers of attorneys, which everybody should have, sometimes is it necessary to have a trust or a will or these specialized deeds, right? Now, what do I mean by specialized deeds? Sometimes clients will come to me and be like, Hameed, mainly elderly clients, right? And they have one house, and they say, I just want to give this to my children. Right? My children are all older adults, okay? And I don't want them to have to go through the hassles of the court. Do I need to do a will? No, because then you have to go, their family have to go to court. Do you do a trust? You can avoid court during the trust, but it's a little bit more expensive than a will. And is there another alternative? And my job is to save my clients time and also money.
Very good.
And so one of the deeds is called a ladybird deed.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't know about this, and it's a very, very, very strong deed. And this can save thousands of dollars in the future. What does this deed do? You can keep the assets that you have in your name, and upon your passing, it goes directly to an individual. You record the deed, right?
Okay.
And you have full control while you're alive. Now, a lot of times, what we like to do, especially in our community, is we like to quit claim and put assets in either our children's names or our family members' names while we're alive on the same deed, or just give them the deed and say, here, it's yours, and just have it, even though they technically know it's mine.
Very good.
We've discussed the issues with that, right? A ladybird deed says, look, if I want to give my house to Hassan, I can give my house to Hassan through this deed, but I have full control during my lifetime. Hassan cannot tell me what to do with it. If his creditors, if somebody sues him, it's not going to affect me in any way, shape, or form. And if, for example, I'm on Medicaid, what people don't know, which is also a misconception as well too, is Medicaid. If you have a house and they've given you Medicaid Medicaid benefits throughout your whole life, Medicaid has the right to come in and they have the right to say, hey, we gave you free health care. We want whatever that we gave you through your house and through the assets that you have.
Oh, they can?
They can, of course they can. It's through estate recovery. So what's one way to avoid that legally? Is through a ladybird deed. And so these are very specialized deeds and very important deeds. They're not regular deeds, but they're very powerful. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Hameed, I got a question also on Facebook. They're saying, we did the power of attorney, but we lost the document.
Okay.
So do we have to do another one, or?
Yeah, I mean, if they lost the document, then it's best to draft another one. Especially, my next question would follow up would be, when did they do the document?
Okay.
Because new laws came out, so it might be better for them to redo it. And if anybody has a copy of it as well, that would be great. If it's stored anyway, maybe they gave it to their physician. Maybe it's somewhere. I made a copy in the hospital records. Maybe it's at a bank. If it's a financial power of attorney, it's stored somewhere there. Check all avenues. If you can't find one, then you can.
So your recommendation, it's not draft another one.
Yeah, recommendation draft another one.
Very good. Hameed,
Yes.
follow up to that.
Yes.
Is there different types of power of attorney? I know there is like a general where you give them power to everything,
Sure.
and then there is something where you specialize which area you're giving them
Yes,
power to, right?
very, very good observation on this. So a lot of times people will say, I want to give a power of attorney to this person, but just, I only want them to sell the house for me because I'm going overseas to Lebanon.
Thank you.
This
Thank you.
happens
It happens
very
a lot.
often,
I know.
very often. So they'll come to me, they'll tell me, okay, just give them a general power of attorney, give him or her. I'm like, well, we know we could do a limited power of
Exactly.
attorney. And we could limit it to where upon the sale of the property, that the power of attorney automatically expires. So that way they don't have to worry that this person is doing other things as well too on their behalf. Because a general power of attorney gives somebody the right to make gifts to other people, gives somebody the right to change their beneficiaries.
They can take all of the property.
They can do anything they want with it. And that's okay if you have somebody that you trust, but if it's not necessary, then there's other aspects of
Just
it.
to protect yourself.
Of course,
And if
of
you
course.
just want to give somebody just to sell your house,
Of course.
just give them something limited to sell the house.
Of
You can, if you have the tool, if you have the option to do that,
Why not?
why not, right?
Exactly, exactly.
We have a question from Facebook also. Based on your experience, how long and how much would it cost it will take to resolve or change an average guardianship matter in probate court?
Well, that is a very, in law school they tell us, the answer to many questions is 2 words. It depends.
Depends.
It depends. So it really depends on, is there going to be a legal fight between the person who's currently guardian and who's not? How much information do we have? Do we have to go continue to get doctors' reports to show that this person maybe doesn't need guardianship anymore? Are you trying to terminate it, or are you trying to modify it? Are you trying to boot somebody out because they did something wrong, so that way we have to gather evidence to provide and to show the court that this person violated their fiduciary duties? Or is it something where somebody wants to resign and nominate somebody else? Right? And so there's a lot that's involved in it. So I'd like to review the case and follow up with a few more questions.
So there's no one answer to it. It depends.
No,
Each case is different.
oh yeah,
because you don't wanna give like something.
Oh yeah, especially when it comes to modifications of guardianships, because there's a lot of back and forth in court. I have to file documents in court, then I have to go to court
But
hearing.
if you would give them one recommendation and one suggestion right now, what would it be? One advice?
On that particular situation,
That particular situation.
I don't know what it is that they want specifically to advise them. I'm not sure.
My
what
advice
the
come
role-
to Hameed.
Besides that, no, I appreciate
So
that.
you can.
Yeah, because I need to know the
details of
facts. I need
case,
to know the
so
details,
you'll be
exactly.
able like,
Because
to-
sometimes it depends. Are you just trying to get somebody new,
Yeah.
or did somebody, is there somebody who's doing something on behalf of this person
Yeah.
and taking advantage of them
Yeah.
by taking their money or putting them in a place that they're not happy, so they're complaining. They're in a medical facility like the nursing home you talked about from before,
Yes.
and they're not happy to be there. So are they telling you they're not happy, or is it did the court or a professional guardianship company or the social workers at the hospital file this petition in court, and then you have to go ahead and you have to go there and to show them that you want to be the guardian instead, or you want to modify? There's way too many factors that play into it. So I mean, my advice is the same with your advice. I'd love to see it and learn more about the case, and then I'll definitely do the best I can to help. And it's a
Very
free
good.
consultation.
Awesome. Hameed, I want to end it up
Sure.
with probably this is a big topic,
Yeah,
which is the probate court process.
we'll get to that on the radio show too, but I'd love to. touch
Just
on that.
briefly,
Yeah,
we're
of
gonna touch
course.
base on it,
I'd
and
love
then we're gonna be discussing more on the next radio show with Hameed, which is coming up very soon next month.
Yeah.
So just very briefly, what's
Yeah,
the
of
process?
course,
if you
and
don't
I
mind?
wanted to touch on that as well too. So what people don't realize is how long and how extensive and how time consuming and how much of a headache this process is. First of all, something happens to somebody, they're going through an emotional difficult time, right? Next thing is they have to deal with how am I can't even access the bank accounts anymore. They won't let me. The court says I need letters of authority. How do I get letters of authority? So they'll come to me. I'll put together a questionnaire of what I need from them. They'll gather the documents for me. I'll take those documents that are necessary. We'll take them through the court process. Now you have to file paperwork at the court. You have to pay court fees. And the court actually takes a percentage of how much assets that this person died with. They take a percentage for themselves as an inventory fee, even though they're not storing anything at the court, just because the court can do that.
They do?
Yeah, they take a percentage of the
How
assets.
much is percentage?
It depends. You have to, depending on how much assets, there's like a calculator that you can go on and you can check up, you can type it in, and you can, obviously the more money that you have, the more that they take, right? And then you file these documents in the court. Whether it's through a petition, through a court hearing, or the application process without the court hearing, there's multiple ways to do it. There's more expensive ways, there's cheaper ways, and then there's ways that if you, is there a will or is there not a will that's involved in here. So let's say you get appointed, and then somebody gets nominated or somebody gets appointed as personal representative. This person's in charge of going ahead and administering the estate. This person actually has a job. What they don't know is it's not just easy. No, they actually have a job. Their job is to go to the banks, find out where his or her assets are located. Now they have their proper letters of authority to act on behalf of this person. They have to open up another bank account on behalf of the estate. Any rentals, any income coming in, any taxes for the individual that they have to file that they have to take care of. They finish with that. Once that's done and taken over, they have to deal with the creditors at the same time, and then they have to speak with the creditors, see if they can negotiate.
This is very complicated.
It gets very complicated. It's very intense. And then after that, there's a process to transfer the assets. The personal representative has authority over them, and then you close out the estate, and then obviously in the meantime, while you're closing it out, you're transferring it to the beneficiaries. It's a process that takes 6 months to a year, if not more. Probably 8 months to a year on average for that. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's pretty extensive, and there's way more involved in it.
8 months to a year
to close it, on average. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, because you have to give time for the creditors to say, hey, this person owed us some money, and so we want to go ahead and we have to file our interest against the estate. Give them time to respond, and you respond back to them. Then you have to give them time to respond, and then there's other things that you have to deal with, file their taxes, and then if there's any estate taxes as well too. And so it becomes a process.
It becomes a process, which is we're gonna be talking about on our next radio show with Hameed. And you guys keep an eye on the page because we post all of the updates about announcements for the shows and stuff. Those shows are the WhatsApp Talk Show. They happen every Wednesday from 3 to 4. You can listen to it on 102.3 FM, and you can watch it on our Facebook page live, like this show right now. Hameed,
yes.
I'm gonna give you your closing remarks, and I'll close after you.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you to What's Up Media Network, Hussein Hasham. Azana, thank you as well too. I appreciate the time and having me on the show. Next to the audience, thank you all who listened and who submitted their questions. If there's anything I can do, feel free to give me a call at any time. My direct number 313-401-4488. You're welcome to call me. Address is 1 Park Lane Boulevard, Suite 729 East, Dearborn, Michigan 48126. At the end of the day, you want to protect yourself, things that you've worked hard for, your family, your children in the future. You want to get that peace of mind, بدك تكون مرتاح. لأنه أمانة حالك وأمانة أولادك وعائلتك in any way that you can, and to just get that peace of mind, and whatever it is that you need, if I can help in any way, I'd love to help. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Hameed, for your time. For you to come in on this day, and specifically that time.
Thank you.
And give us all the time without no cap. That's amazing. Thank you for the information.
Sure.
They were very helpful.
Sure.
I'm sure everyone that's watched today, they benefited from the information that Hameed provided. Just to remind you guys, Hameed's phone number is 313-401-4488. 313-401-4488. Or you can go to his website, which is Dakroub Group, Dakroublaw.com. Or you can check out his Facebook and Instagram page, which has amazing content. And you can see
Thanks to What's Up Media Network.
Thanks to What's Up Media. And I believe you have a post coming up today, actually.
Oh, there was,
so they can check out the new Hameed.
Right.
You can always check Hameed's social media pages, because he always provides tips on there. He always provides videos and graphics that explains different terms that relates to estate planning and probate. He explains different concepts and different ideas. So make sure you go to Hameed's page. It's also Dakroub Law or Dakroub Group.
Dakroub Group on Instagram. I mean, you could go to www.dakroubgroup or dakroublaw.com. Either way will take you to my website.
Nice,
as well.
very good. Just so we can, so you can go to the pages and you'll be able to see all of the information there. We wanted to basically get that out of the way. Abdul, saying thank you and God bless you, Hameed.
Thank you so much.
Abdul, for watching.
Thank
you everyone that was watching. Thank you everyone that sent us a question on Facebook and the messages. It was really helpful to get those informations to you guys, those questions, so we can answer it. Just before we end, I want to thank the sponsors again for What's Up Media Network. Attorney Hameed Dakroub, State Planning and Probate Attorney. Applied Modern House, Dr. Mo Hazimi. He has 2 locations, one in Dearborn Heights and the other one is in Livonia. Dr. Mo, we're going to have a live show with him next week. We're going to put the announcement for it hopefully by tomorrow, so you guys can know about the date with Dr. Mohazimi. We're going to be doing a show with him about weight loss. So keep an eye on the page so you can know when that show is coming up with Dr. Mohazimi. Also, a big thank you to Abe Ayoub from Big Rays, the Quick Lube on Oakman and Ford Road. They're located here next to us in Dearborn. Great shop. Please check it out. And also Aswaq Al Balad, Every Fresh Market, located in Dearborn Heights on Ann Arbor Trail. Thank you everyone that's been supporting WhatsApp Media Network. Anybody that's interested in joining our sponsorship or advertising with us in any of the live shows we do or in any of the platforms that we do, we are on social media. We have our great website, we have a newsletter, and we have the radio show. Any of those platforms that you want to advertise on, feel free to call us at 313-258-6799, and I believe the phone number is coming up on the screen. You can see it there. 313-258-6799. Check out our website, check out the newsletter, check out the Facebook and social and Instagram, because we have a lot of updates and stories that we always post there. And the final reminder I want to leave you with, tomorrow we have a live show at 6:30 p.m. Abbas Abu Khudr will be hosting former Ambassador Ali Ajami and community activist Zuhair Alawiya. They want to talk about the Arabic identity and how is it going here in Dearborn and why we're losing, the Arabic language. The show will be in Arabic tomorrow with Abbas and his guest, so you can tune in on this page only to watch that show. It will be live. If you have any question, feel free to put your question there. Feel free to share those videos so we can reach more people, and feel free to reach out to us and send us your ideas and the topics you want us to talk about, so we can basically bring it to you. We had so many requests from parents, and this is I'm going to end it with it. We had so many requests with parents to talk about the MOVO or MOVO challenge. I promise you I will be talking about it in the next 2 days. We received many messages on Instagram, many messages on Facebook, many private messages. They're asking us to talk about that challenge so we can make more parents aware about what's going on and how they can protect their kids. You guys send it to us, and we promise you we're going to be talking about it in the next 2 days, about that specific challenge and how you can protect your kids and how can you use some of the apps available so you can prevent that video from popping up to your kids. So just keep an eye on the page, and in the next 2 days we're going to be basically announcing when we're going to be talking about that specifically. With that, I want to thank Hameed for joining me. I want to thank everyone that watched the show today. I want to thank Zaina that directed the show, Zaina Al-Haj, behind the camera. Thank you everyone for the questions. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Always keep an eye on WhatsApp Media Network Web TV. Always bringing you the latest, the best, and the unique and the epic content that you guys really want to watch. So like our page, share this video, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.